Hello and welcome everyone to this new episode of Global Insights on our digital TV channel F15 by Forbes DACH. And I'm Klaus and I'm the editor-in-chief of the German-speaking edition of Forbes. And in this format, we meet the Forbes editors and editors-in-chiefs from around the world. We have 35 local language editions across the globe, which range from Argentina to Indonesia, from South Africa to Finland. And we want to see what other countries are how other countries are dealing with this crisis, what the media industry is looking like, and especially also what the economic situation in these places is currently like. Today's guest is Dror Shaier. He is the editor-in-chief of Forbes in Israel. Forbes in Israel has been one of the longer-serving editions in the Forbes network. They've been around for 16 years. And Israel obviously is not just an interesting place when it comes to startup technology, especially in Tel Aviv, but it's also a highly complex and exciting place when it comes to political and economic processes and situations. So I'm excited to hear what he has to say, what he can tell us about what's going on in Israel. Dror, thank you so much for joining us. Give us a bit of an idea what the last few weeks have been like for you and in Israel in general. We've seen, I think, 250 or 260 deaths from the coronavirus crisis. You've had about 18,000 cases, so not super mild, but also not as crazy as it is in other places. But how heavy have restrictions been? How much did your life change in these last few weeks? Give us a bit of an idea what your life was like in the last 8 weeks.
Yeah. So first of all, happy to be here and talk to you, Klaus. Actually, in Israel, we managed to deal with the corona crisis quite well. We, in a very early stage, we already closed the borders and canceled all the flights from first from China, then from Italy, and then from the rest of the world. And not a long time after, we entered a lockdown. It was something like, I think, 3 weeks. And then we managed to overcome the spread of the virus. And then we reopened all the country, actually, and the economy. It was, it was a tough time. All of us was at home. We worked from home, and during this time, the unemployment rate rose to something like 27%, which is a huge amount of unemployment. But then again, everything was very fast. We started it very early, and we managed to go back to normal quite fast. So now, actually, everything is, I would not say back to normal completely, but we are on our way there. Everyone already work from the workplaces, from the offices, and the shops are open, the restaurants, and so on.
When you look at the headlines that Israel makes in international media and international press, it was especially in the beginning of this crisis when your political situation changed quite dramatically and quite quickly after the fourth election, I think, in a third election. Give us a bit of an idea and your view on what happened there and what the development might look like or might mean for Israel in general.
Mm-hmm. So it was really crazy time here, politically wise. We after three rounds of elections, one after another, and something like a year and a half without an elected government. And then the corona crisis started, so it was all together. It had consequences because we can't, because there was no government. We couldn't make any rules that help the economics and so on, the stimulus plans and so on. Everything was stuck. And then we finally, something like 1 month ago, we managed to form a government, at least. Yeah. But it's not a normal government. It's a rotation government. So it means that for the 1 year and a half from now on, Benjamin Netanyahu will be the prime minister. And after that, he's supposed to leave the office, and Benjamin Gantz, his opponent, supposed to become the prime minister. But not a lot of people here in Israel believe that it will happen. It will really happen because their opponents, they are not from the same party, of course, and they are not have a lot in common. So it's quite it's a recipe for problems, and we already start to see this. All the clashes inside the government, but it's better than nothing. So this is the situation here right now.
So you think that Benjamin Netanyahu will try to stay in power and not leave office after the 1 year that they've agreed upon?
That is the main analysis here. The political analysts think so, and actually, I think so too.
How? I mean, you've said before that you didn't have a government, so there wasn't really anyone to respond to this crisis. Now you have a government. Yeah. How much? I mean, I think I've looked at the numbers, and GDP in Israel is forecast to contract by, I don't know, 5-6%. So not as bad as in other countries, but still, still a challenge. How has the government reacted after they formed? How much economic aid has there been for the economy? How much stimulus was there? Maybe you can speak a bit to that.
There was a stimulus plan of something like $25 billion, I think, which is, it's not a lot compared to stimulus, some stimulus plans in Europe, but it's a lot in Israeli notions. Actually, the most of the money goes to the unemployment, the new unemployment people that lost their jobs, and to the businesses that the government wants to let them a stimulus to get back their workers and get back to work. So most of the money goes there. There is a problem here with the I forgot the word, the freelancers. Mm-hmm. They do not get enough stimulus, enough money, and there are a lot of noise about it right now in the media and in the streets, actually. And that's more or less the situation here. Another problem, there are two, I think, bad omens that we heard lately. The first one is the fact that the unemployment rates, although the economy reopened, the unemployment rates are still very high, still something like 20%. So no one knows why exactly it's still so high if the everything's supposed to get back to normal. And the second thing is the widening, the increase in the deficit, the budget deficit, that was already a little bit high, something like 3% before the Corona crisis, and now last month it was rise to 7%, which is no surprise because the income from taxes was hit very much, and the stimulus plan is costing a lot. But still, it's not a bad, it's not a good number.
Do you think that maybe Israelis were more prepared or more, let's say, protected for such a crisis because they know how to deal with turmoil, they know how to deal with unrest, they know how to deal with problems in general because they're so used to so much going on in their country? Or do you think that didn't play a role in how also the citizens handled this?
Actually, it's a good point. I really think we were better prepared. We used to situations like this, to crisis situations, and I think that we managed this quite well. But on the other hand, because we are used to crises and we used to not stable situations. After we reopened the economy and got back to normal, people just got crazy. They they had enough of the restrictions and all of this, and we had 2 weeks of euphoria here. People just, I told you earlier, they walk in the street without the mask, although it's obligatory. And every night here and in the bars and the restaurants, everything is full and people crowded very near to each other. So it's a problem because first we thought that everything is behind us and people, as I said, were in euphoria. And then some days ago, we started again to detect new corona cases, outbreaks, mainly in schools. And then again, people started to think, okay, maybe it's not behind us. Maybe we should go back to safety mode. And it's actually it's also a very delicate point, also for the government. That has to decide now whether to continue with the reopening of the economy, or stop and see what happened, maybe take a step back, and so on. So it's very interesting,
How has this impacted your work? How has the media industry been hit in Israel, and how have you at Forbes in Israel had to adapt to this change? In many other countries, it was ad revenues went down and online traffic especially went up. Was this the same for you? And if so, how did you manage to maybe change or adapt your editorial strategy or your products, or how you went with events that were canceled?
Yeah. Actually, the media in Israel was already not in a good shape before the coronavirus. I think as in most of the world, especially the printed media. So the coronavirus crisis was another hit. Obviously, much less advertising. But and we started to work from home, of course. We worked for something like a month from home. And but that was some of the editors were sent to a vacation. Now already most of them came back, but the main problem was the printing houses that wasn't working. So the last two issues we published digitally with very few copies in print. And it's actually, it was very interesting, very interesting thing to try. And now
sorry to
we
interrupt, but
think maybe
did you react in your cover stories, for example? Did you react to the crisis? Did you adapt your covers, or did you keep covers you've had planned before?
No, of course, we reacted to the crisis. You just can't do anything else. We actually we had the the story about Zoom from Forbes US. It was a very popular one, and we also dealt a lot with startups in Israel, here in Israel, that use the crisis to rise. And actually, the startups here are some of them didn't survive the crisis, but some managed to adapt to the new situation. And we had one startup, for example. It's called Diagnostic Robotics. They managed to develop an interactive map that can predict outbreaks of corona. They ask people to to fill questionnaires every day and write about their situation, how they feel, symptoms, and so on. And actually, they managed to do a very good job, and they worked together with health ministry here. And we had other stories like that, actually, around the startups and technology mainly.
How have you had to adapt your activities in terms of events? Have you had to cancel events, and are you pushing them to the autumn, or how are you dealing on that front where you have to be in physical contact with people?
Mm-hmm. Actually, now we have we try. It's the first time we have an event in Zoom. I don't know how will it be, or if it will be a success. But yeah, that's what we can do now.
What's the topic there?
Sorry.
What's the topic of the event you're doing, or what's
the topic is the actually it's around what I said right now. The companies that managed to rise during the crisis. Yeah.
The rising stars, so to say, of the crisis.
Yeah. Yeah.
And do you think, how do you see the next few months happening in Israel? Let's say not so much politically, because I think that's a puzzle that we won't be able to solve.
Yeah.
But economically, and maybe also looking towards your strategy at Forbes. So how do you think, how much will it change or have to change, or will we go back to normal in the matter of a few weeks?
For my opinion, we will go back to normal quite fast. Maybe not normal as we used to describe it before the crisis, but I don't think something will change very radically here. I think day after day we will manage to accept the new situation and go back to normal. There are a lot of sounds here now in Israel, a lot of opinions of main, prominent doctors that start to say that all the corona situation is really an exaggeration. It's not it's not such a problem as we did it, and they say it's just some kind of a flu, and actually more people die because they are scared to come to hospitals than people who died here from the coronavirus. So I think things are starting to after the hysteria, things are starting to be more calm here, more rational, and I think we will go back to normal quite fast. And the same in Forbes. I think already now we are working exactly as we worked before the crisis. In our offices with the full staff and all of this.
Dror, thank you so much for taking the time. Thank you so much for giving us the insights into what's going on in Israel. All the best, obviously, with not only the Zoom event you have coming up, but also the next few months. If you're ever in Vienna or Zurich or in Germany somewhere, let me know, then we can meet in person. And thank you, everyone who was watching this. If you don't want to miss any of our videos, click the subscribe button, which I think should be here. Then you get a notification every time we publish a new thing. And tune back in next week for Forbes Global Insights, where we talk to another editor-in-chief of one of our local language editions. I'm sure it will be interesting to you. Dror, thank you so much for taking the time. All the best.
Thank you very much. It was a pleasure. And bye.